CNN Network Channel 10. Yeah, so reality. Boom, boom, boom. What up, though? All right. It is time for a Q&A for October 2025. I'm not in a good mood, so hopefully this cheers me up. Ain't been in a good mood in many, 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 many days. Uh, oh boy. But hopefully you guys cheer me up. Oh my goodness. All right, I guess I gotta do it this way. What's up? What's up, Top Dog? How you doing, brother? All right. All right. Let's get right into it. There's no need to wait. No time to waste. Gotta know when to hold them. Gotta know when to fold them. And let's get into it. Let me get some of this stuff off my screen first, so I can not be distracted. Okie dokie. All right. Big Armada, how you doing, brother? So 305 Johnny, he's got 6 questions. One, what is your 2026 life-changing predictions? Man, that's a good question because I've been in my same position at my job for about 4 years now, and I think it's time to move on. Like I always get a sense of you show that you're competent at something, then you move on to more responsibility. I kind of missed that opportunity this year because I was suspicious, but I think if I get the opportunity next year, I'm gonna actually move on to a different job next year. We'll see. I don't want to. I'm not in the financial position to switch jobs right now, but so maybe I gotta do like another year or two before I can actually switch jobs, considering how this financial hole I done dug myself into. But that might be one of the things that I do next year. Everything else is gonna be a surprise, man. Uh, um, so I'm not I'm not making any huge changes. I always like to make incremental changes. So that's gonna be that. Um, Anything else kind of predictions? I don't know. I was thinking about starting up a second channel. And moving all of my political stuff and everything to that channel. I was thinking about doing that, but that's more work. I don't want to do more work. And plus, I like the idea of doing everything on one channel because the channels that I really watch a lot of, they do everything on one channel, like Razor Fist, for instance. Ironically, I was just looking at Razor Fist. So like, I don't like the idea of just I'm gonna have a wrestling channel, then I'm gonna have another channel for this. It's all the same. It's all the same. So we just gonna do it all in one place, I guess. His second question: why is everyone going after Candace Owens, ABL, and Charleston White? Well, it's for different reasons, if I remember correctly. Look, Candace Owens is nuts, and everybody knows like there's always something. She's really been off the deep end since the Charlie Kirk situation happened. The Charleston White thing also had a lot to do with Charlie Kirk because he basically laughed and said he didn't care. But Anthony Bryan Logan, I'm not sure. Um, I'm not sure why everybody goes after him. He might have said something that I missed but I don't really. He's pretty run of the mill black conservative. He doesn't really shake the table too much. So there's nothing there. But like I said, I've said it before. Candace Owens and Charleston White, they're chaos agents. I'm not really sure what they believe because they always find a way to their opinions. They find a way to monetize them. So I really don't trust them in terms of you know um, speaking any type of value. I would definitely question if you get your values or anything outside of just bizarre entertainment out of Candace Owens and Charleston White. And there is entertainment to be had, but that's in short bursts of time. I'll watch a short of Charleston White. I'm not about to watch a whole interview. I listen to an hour of Candace Owens because she's nuts. But then I'll walk away from it laughing, thinking like, "Oh my god, how much of that was actually true?" It's almost like listening to Alex Jones sometimes. Like if you listen to Alex Jones 20 years ago or so, that's kind of how listening to Candace Owens is. It's so crazy that you think she can't be that creative and come up with it, At the same time, though, you're like, this can't possibly be true, and you, you just walk away with a sense of who knows? It's like ancient aliens. Who the hell knows? Three. What was your favorite rapper's best verse that you tried to rap over? Oh, um, well, there's a couple. I'm a big Bone Thugs and Harmony fan. It's hard to rap those verses. It's very difficult. Very difficult to do those verses. But pretty much any Nas verse I can come up with, specifically his verse on QB's Finest. I'm a big fan of that. Um, so that's probably one. Four. What was your favorite Fox TV show? Ooh, Fox. I think Martin was on Fox, so I love Martin. You know, so maybe I'm gonna say Martin. Five. Do you feel Cody Rhodes' finish the story angle was a flop? No, no, I don't think it was a flop. I think that there was a lot of organic energy behind it, but like all stories, they have an end. The problem was there was no next step. Once the story ended, you know, that's the thing about fairy tales, Once you get to the happily ever after, there's a reason why there's a period and it says the end. Like nobody really cares what happens after, you know, you save the day unless you do something to make it interesting, and they didn't. So there it is. Who do you predict for the WWE Hall of Fame class in 2026? I'm going to go with, well, they already announced Stephanie. So I'm going to go with John Cena as well. But I question whether they're going to do John Cena. And, well, I see them doing John Cena this year because I don't think they're going to be able to do it in Saudi next year. So I want to go with John Cena. Uh, and that being sort of the capstone to his final year. Um, I can't really think of anybody else, and I'm sure somebody will come to me eventually. Maybe they'll have another woman, maybe like Mickey James or something. Another woman will get added. I mean, it seems like it would be the right thing to do to add more than one woman because they've been adding one woman per year, but now they're kind of running out of guys that people care about. Now they probably put in a tag team that I'm not thinking of or something like that. But well, Demolition's not in the Hall of Fame. Oh, yes, they are. Um, mm, uh, I'm sure there's some people I can think of, but I know for sure it should be John Cena. He should be number one, unless they'll finally get Batista to do it. All right. Well, 305 Johnny has some more questions here. Five more. One. Have you ever attended a Turning Point USA or Black Leadership Summit? Oh Lord, no. No, I don't think Turning Point even existed when I was in college. So no, and I wouldn't go back to college to attend any of these things. But I did. I was part of the executive board of a Black student union when I was in college, but I've never attended a Black leadership summit. Two, what is your positive outlook on Charlie Kirk? Well, I like, let's say, three things. One, he seems to be very passionate about Jesus Christ, which I appreciate. Two, he dared to challenge the ongoing brainwashing of college students, which some people saw as him picking on kids, which is ridiculous because there's no children on college campuses. Secondly, most of those people were more quote unquote educated than him, considering I believe he dropped out of college. And the third thing is he seemed like a genuinely nice guy who unless you have political differences with him, you really didn't have any other kind of issues with him, you know? And like I said before, they shot the nice guy. Three, what are your religious values that you agree or disagree? What are your religious values that you agree or and disagree? Uh, I don't know. Like it's hard to say what what religious values I disagree with. You know, there's things that I don't like. Me, like if you go by stuff in the Bible, like, and I'm specifically talking about the Bible, where like not eating shellfish. Like I don't understand it. I don't eat shellfish because I'm allergic to it. I don't understand it, but that doesn't mean that I like or dislike it. Um, I guess I listened to a sermon by G. Craig Lewis, and he was going on and on about men having long hair. And as a man with long hair, I was kind of like, all right, let's get it over with, OG. You're not gonna talk to me into cutting my hair, okay? you're just you're just not gonna talk me into cutting my hair. So maybe that, and I know that is in the Bible. He was right on that. But he's not gonna get me to cut my hair. But that might be it. Like that's the I pretty much agree with most everything else. That everything has an order to it. You know, um, a lot of the parables and a lot of the lessons that you learn in the Bible are not necessarily things you could disagree with. You know, because it's just the natural order, which is crazy. Um, Four, what are your six grandfathers of race hustling and grifting? Oh, 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 the six race hustlers of grifting? Oh my goodness. Okay. The north, south, east, west, backwards, and forwards of race grifting. Well, number one, Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton is the Don King of race grifters. All right. Only in America. Only in America. I can't stand that Negro. Not only was he a Fed, but like every other word out of his mouth was a goddamn lie. He was behind that Tawana Brawley mess. That ended up being a complete and total lie. He was a Fed. He was a drug dealer. He's a fat pimp. I cannot stand Al Sharpton. Number two would probably be Obama. He didn't. He rate. I mean, he should be number one because he race grifted himself way into the White House. But that whole my son would have looked like Trayvon, him giving two different messages to black youth. You're poor, put upon young men when you're talking to white people. When you're talking to them, he's a black conservative. You got to stand up for yourself. You have to learn how to do everything yourself. It's like, man, why can't you have a consistent message? I hated that two-faced stuff that he was doing. I wish he was consistent. One way or the other, be consistent. Three, Ibram X. Kendi, because he's another one of these. I changed my name to sound more African weirdos. His name is Henry, and he's a profoundly stupid man. All right, he's just a not smart guy. Uh, so so number three is easily Ibram X. Kendi. He's an idiot. Four is Jesse Jackson. For starters, Jesse Jackson lied about being on the balcony when Martin Luther King was shot. He wasn't on the balcony, he was on the street when it happened. Witnesses say that Jesse Jackson ran up the stairs and dipped his shirt in Martin Luther King's blood. Very macabre. Now, Jesse Jackson actually did know Martin Luther King. He used to help run Operation Breadbasket in Chicago, so he did have some connection to the man, but he's an outright liar. Had a baby out of wedlock. Oh boy. He he pulled that he pulled the old switcheroo on abortion. He was anti-abortion until he wanted to run for president. Then he became somebody who pushed abortion. The what was it, Rainbow Coalition or Rainbow Push? They used to extort businesses for money, threaten boycotts if they didn't give them money. He should be number one. The more that I talk about Jesse Jackson, he should be number one. No, he's a solid number two. I think just the fact that Obama got so far doing it takes him to number two, but Jesse Jackson's the shits. And he's just number four. Um, Number five in terms of race grifters, hmm, Colin Kaepernick. I mean, he's a mediocre quarterback who, if he had not taken a knee, nobody will remember him or talk about him today. He completely destroyed the NFL and made it pretty much unwatchable for fans for the pretty much for the end of to the end of time. Um, really sad times that happened when the Colin Kaepernick stuff happened in the NFL. That did it. It pretty much nuked the NFL from orbit, and nobody really cared about. I mean, it's difficult to get people to watch football, but look at what happened since. Every halftime show is a battle. It's a cultural battle. They got all these pointless slogans in the end zone. Um, all these protesting football players, the woke ESPN, all this stuff started because of Colin Kaepernick. He is fuck. He should be like number two. Okay, but he's just number five. All right, he's just number five. Um, six in terms of race grifters, the six grandfathers of race grifting. Oh man. Um, geez, let me think of one more. I, hmm, I, uh, I want to do somebody from music, but it's hard for me to pick just one that I feel is a sawed off grifter. Most musicians, I don't take them seriously, so it's hard for me to say. Like, I mean, same thing with actors. Like, I don't. It's hard for me to take actors and musicians seriously. So I assume 90% of what they say is either a commercial or a lie. So it's hard for me to do like, well, yeah, this guy is the utmost race grifter. Like when you talk about sincere race grifting, like the people I've already named are some of the worst ever, the worst to ever do it. I mean, it's some of the worst in the world, dog. They actively make the world a worse place with their race grifting. Ben Crump will probably be on the list too. He's kind of like the modern Al Sharpton, but it's kind of like having Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, and Benjamin Crump all on the list is kind of bullshit. Um, wait a minute, let's think about somebody else. Maybe one of these race grifting ass black pastors. Maybe a Jamal Bryant. Maybe somebody like him. I can't stand that bum. You know, yes, I can't stand that bum. His final question: have you seen any of Chad O. Jackson's documentaries and what you learned out of them? I am a huge fan of Chad O. Jackson. I watched Uncle Tom 1 and 2. I haven't seen the MLK Project yet, but I do intend to watch it. I watched his YouTube channel. I was listening to him and Delano on Jason Whitlock, and I was at work this early morning or afternoon. So I'm a pretty big supporter of him. I learned a lot because he was the one that got me to pushing more and asking more questions than Martin Luther King. Like, I already knew Martin Luther King was a socialist. What I didn't know was the religious end of it, that he was a Christian kind of in name only. And I hadn't really thought about that part because whenever I say, okay, this is a race drifting ass pastor, somebody like Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton, I'm like, what church do they belong to? But when it comes to Martin Luther King, he actually did belong to a church. You know, they're like, oh, okay, he was Second Ebenezer Baptist Church. Oh, okay, but his sermons weren't traditional Christian sermons. They were almost always political. So I was like, and then Chad kind of pushed me into going into the Stanford University website and reading some of his writings on Christianity. And then, of course, I had also learned that he was a plagiarist before I even learned that he was a socialist. So I kind of discredited everything that he quote unquote wrote. I even have a book from Martin Luther King, but that Martin Luther King thing kind of is what he's becoming known for. But he does really good documentaries. He was a part of the Uncle Tom series, and I have a pretty strong faith in the Martin Luther King MLK project. Mr. VXG, do you prefer face or heel authority figures on wrestling TV shows? Heel. They drive storylines forward more. I think we got three babyface um, stories, three babyface general managers on WWE right now, and they barely move the stories forward. All they do is really yell at the talent. That's pretty much it. And the heels don't really do a good job of breaking the rules or getting in their face or anything. They make all the heels paper tigers. I'm not a fan of that. Some dot says, "What if Triple H was Gangrel? If he was Gangrel, he wouldn't be Triple H. I don't know. What if he was Gangrel? what would we do about that? What do we do with that information? If Gangrel was Triple H, that means Triple H would be Gangrel, right? Like, what if are we swiping their bodies or their brains? Because Gangrel was never in great shape. Triple H was at least in great shape. I remember when I used to read the dirt sheets and Meltzer used to talk about how great Gangrel was, and they didn't give him enough time to work and all that stuff. He was a great character, though. JS has a question. Anyone you miss seeing on WWE TV? Nobody that's still alive, anyway. I love Vince. Everybody knows that. But I'm not sure if there was anything more to do with him as a character on TV. I think WrestleMania 38 was a great way to bow out for his character. Stephanie was a great character as well, but she could be a little overpowering. Outside of that, unless they died, no, maybe Kurt Angle. I wish they could do more with Kurt Angle, but he can barely move. DeAndre Dukes has 5 questions. 1, it's safe to say that Triple H's booking is dreadful, right? I think that Vince Russo said it best that Triple H has proven himself to not be creative. I think that, we as a person who consumes a lot of material, you can see, especially a lot of fictional material, you can see that a fiction writer has quirks, right? Like Frank Miller likes his badass heroes to have badass females, right? So there's always like Elektra or Deadly Little Miho and Sin City or whatever. It's a regular thing. Like when he wrote Superman, Wonder Woman was like this super badass who was completely into him, and they had sex in the sky and all this other crazy stuff. But like writers have those sorts of things, and you can see that bookers do too, where they'll have their their Bible. This is the thing that they go by. And Triple H's thing, it seemed to be like a pamphlet, not like an entire folder of ideas, but like a pamphlet of ideas. Put 2 characters together, they're a tag team, then they go single, then they feud, and then a couple of years later they get back together and they're feuding again, or they're tagging again or whatever. Like how many times you got to do this? They're friends, they separate, put them in a faction, random faction, and you're just crazy factions bringing guys in, 40-year-old guys and stuff. It's really weird, man. It sucks. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing. 2, which wrestler from any era should have achieved more? Ted DiBiase should have been a world champion. I know it's probably too late, and I couldn't tell you when exactly you could have gave him the belt, but I think he would have been a great challenger for Hitman. Uh, I think the same thing for Rick Martel and Jeff Jarrett. I know that they were, Rick Martel was a kind of a weird character, Mr. Perfect. All those guys would have been great for that new generation era. Yes, they were from the early 90s and the late 80s, but if you'd just let them, like, you needed some guys to bridge the gap because you thought Hogan was too old, Savage was too old. All right, but Martel's there, and Rick Rude couldn't go anymore, but he would have been a good one too. And Perfect, and he hurt his back in like 91 or something like that, and it was kind of iffy after that. And his terrible babyface run in 93 was kind of embarrassing. But there, those are quite a few guys right there that I think should have did more. Probably Johnny Nitro, especially when he came back around 2020. I expected more, but they were pretty solidified in their top guys at the time. He wasn't going to get in at that point. 3, since the death of Charlie Kirk, what's gonna happen to this country moving forward? Same thing that's always been happening. I'm very interested in how serious Trump is going to be about this Antifa thing, because if he don't do nothing now, ain't nothing going to be done. You know, they've been allowed to pretty much run around with impunity for almost 20 years. You know, at least 10 on the national stage of them torching Portland and throwing, cement with milkshakes mixed in and all that kind of stuff. It's been at least 10 years of that, and if somebody don't do anything about it now, it ain't going to happen. 4. Is there any hope for professional wrestling as a whole in the next decade? Depends on the providers. It depends if Netflix or ESPN or whatever takes a huge tumble. If they do, then yeah, wrestling will be down the drain. As long as there's providers willing to pay them a whole lot of money, wrestling will be fine. 5. Do you think WWE made a mistake getting rid of the NXT Tag Team Championships? I'm sorry, Women's Tag Team Championships. Yeah, they should have kept them. I don't know why they got rid of them. They really should have kept them. Uh, it could definitely be beneficial now because they have Evolve. That again, Evolve is also a very women heavy show. They probably should have kept the Women's Tag Team Championships for those shows. JS has another question. If you are a wrestler, would you rather Triple H book your career or be in AEW with the Death Riders? Ooh. Well, how much do I like catering? If I heard WWE catering is pretty good. Triple H has a rotation of talent that he chooses to use, and a lot of people he don't choose to even be bothered with. But I hear Tony Khan overpays talent. So maybe I'll be a Death Rider, walk around in a white T-shirt, make a mean bug. I mean, I'm pretty much better than Wheeler Yuta, so I could do the job. Mr. VXG has another question. Do you prefer it when foreign wrestlers cut pre-taped promos with subtitles or when they cut live promos in bad broken English? For me, that's an easy one. I definitely prefer the pre-tapes. But speaking in public is how they learn. It's how you get better. He has another question. If social media existed in the 90s, which wrestlers do you think would be the biggest crybabies? We'd probably still be pulling old Bret Hart tweets from 97 if that was the case. He'd be one of the biggest crybabies of all time. But I'm interested in like what the Twitter outcome would have been of like a Montreal screw job. Like what kind of bizarre stuff would like Bulldog have tweeted? like, like what what kind of coordinated tweet would have came out of the Hart camp on that time? I've been very interested. Big Armada has a couple of more questions. Do you have any opinions about the conspiracies around Charlie Kirk's assassination having to do with Israel? It's kind of nuts how it's gotten to the point where even someone like Nick Fuentes doesn't agree with these conspiracy theories. I think they're too far fetched, and to me, I think that when somebody of relative political importance dies, there's this desire to have conspiracy theory when in reality, usually the simplest explanation is the right explanation. And what happens usually is what's odd about the Charlie Kirk conspiracy theories is it's not coming from the family because usually these it couldn't have happened that way. It comes from the family. Like when Martin Luther King got shot, it's really like the family, like the government did it. It was the FBI. Same thing with Malcolm X's family. Just don't. They can't believe that like a random dude who just shoots somebody and you know hit his target. like some people was talking about this guy was a super marksman and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, I don't know. Like, if you could show me that this guy has some kind of connection to Israel, but I don't see one. Like, what's his connection to Israel? There's no connection to Israel. He had more connection to trans furries than he did to Israel. Why? How do we get from trans furries to Israel? How do we get there? I don't know. It don't make sense to me. Unless this guy didn't really do it, which it would be weird for him to say he did, and it turned out that he wasn't. But then again, they say he I'm talking about this Tyler Robinson fellow. that he admitted it to his father, but he didn't admit it like in public or anything. So who knows? My thing is usually for something to be a conspiracy, there has to be a pretty good reason. Like JFK, like all the mafia conspiracies, like there's some meat there to the mafia conspiracies and stuff like that. His brother was constantly having run-ins with the mafia. Makes sense that maybe the mafia put a hit on the president. Makes sense. But I don't know about the whole Israel was going to shoot Charlie Kirk. Like, for what? You know, it seemed like that would make them more hated in the country than they already are. It just doesn't make sense to do that. Arcadia Jaha. That's a new one. Hello Mongo. Habari Yako. Habari Gani. I'm an avid listener of yours for the past 2 years from Kenya. I appreciate that. I appreciate your content and listen to every video. What's your take on WWE's insistence on not using Titantron videos anymore? It's something that irks me, and I feel it takes away from the presentation of the wrestlers as their unique characters. Do you find it lazy? I've noticed a company like TNA uses video interests for some of its wrestlers. There's no excuse for WWE to be slacking in this department. I appreciate the good work job. Keep it up. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Uh, and I agree. I don't know why they stopped using them. It doesn't seem to make sense. It seems like one of those things that they are they cut corners on things for no reason. But a Titantron video is like one of the coolest things you could put up there to get a guy over, especially to match the interest theme and all that kind of stuff. I don't see why they stopped. Maybe somebody should bring that question up. There's a lot of stuff that WWE used to do that was so much cooler than what they do now. The uh, the big sets, even having cool sets for regular events, like the special sets for like TLC or Armageddon. Now pretty much every show looks the same. The graphics departments aren't that great. I don't know. It's you could tell it's corporate cutting corners. You can just look at it and tell. It's disgusting. Real sad. Ugh. I dropped my thing again. Uh where was I? I forgot where was I? Oh, here I am. Top Dog has 4 questions. It's from 20 minutes ago. Well, he just snuck this in. What are your thoughts on the early 2010s blog era of hip hop and rap? I liked it. I liked when I used to go to college. I used to sit down at the computer. I would try to do some research, homework, or something, and I would go to like live mixtapes or Dat Piff, and I'd listen to like 30 seconds of somebody and be like, no. And then I'd be sitting there clicking through that more than anything. And I used to come up with some going on like Two Dope Boys and all that sort of stuff. Because Two Dope Boys used to have like underground Chicago stuff. So much fun. That was a fun time to be a rap fan for me. Um, I stumbled across so many guys who, just basically J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar really blew up. But Currency, I was never a big Wiz Khalifa guy, but Currency was great. I was I was I was hot and cold on Wale, where he would have certain tracks. I would be like, oh man, Wale is cool. And then I'd try to listen to an entire project and be like, God damn, Wale's boring, you know? But stumbling across like new mixtape rappers pretty much every other day, groups like Pac Div, you had Pro Era, so I was listening to, Joey Badass and Kirk Strangers and all these guys, man. I was never a big Odd Future guy, but I did listen to like Earl Sweatshirt. He did like a mixtape with The Alchemist. I thought No Idols. That was tremendous. I was like, yeah, man, like following, like listening to beats by Harry Fraud, just the instrumentals. Man, that was a great time. That was a great time. I'm nostalgic for a time when I was almost 30. Um, his second question: what are things about 80s WWE that you prefer to the Attitude Era? Oh, the characters: Hogan, Savage, Rick Rude, The Ultimate Warrior, Andre the Giant, Demolition. I mean, you could just plot me in front of 1986, 87 WWE. I'd just be thrilled. 88, 89, I'm in heaven. 90, you're right there in my pocket. You know, I put my hands on the wall. You know what I'm saying? Um, third question: most overrated rappers of the 90s and 2000s, in your opinion. Why do you think wrestlers nowadays aren't making? I guess. Well, he should have broke those questions up. Most overrated rappers of the 90s and 2000s. Hmm. I want to be honest. Like, I just want to pick people that I don't like, and then I also don't want to say people that I think are quote unquote overrated and nobody else cares. Like, they just announced this versus for No Limit versus Cash Money, right? And I said that's an easy one. As soon as you play Silk the Shocker, you lose. He sucks. Like, legitimately, he's one of the worst MCs of all time. So I'm not gonna say like, oh, he's the most overrated rapper of the '90s. Nobody likes Silk the Shocker for real. I think all of his fans were people who just like beats, just kind of like Yin Yang Twins and Gucci Man and all that kind of stuff. I don't think people even sit down and listen to them lyrically. You kind of listen to the hooks, listen to the beats. That's pretty much it. Now, in terms of overrated rappers of the '90s, there's just entirely too many. A lot of them will be like New York rappers, if we being honest, because New York will always say like this dude is next up, and he wouldn't go anywhere. Saigon, at least in the 2000s, was an embarrassment. Everybody, like, he's the next 50 Cent. You're right. He ain't make it. He ain't make it off the ground. Papoose ain't make it off the ground. Didn't even kick up too much dust. I remember when he got that huge contract too. Everybody's like, "Oh, this nigga Papoose, he gonna be something." Yeah, right. I listened to him until I could tell you he wasn't gonna be nothing. Did you listen to him? Uh, Cassidy. I was a big Cassidy fan though, because I liked the battle rap style. And he was doing it, I think, better than most people at the time. But looking back on it, that shit dated a lot. Same thing with Fabulous. It like a lot of Fabulous music dated. Like, it feels like it was made in 2003, and and you probably shouldn't listen to it after that. But I didn't hate Fabulous at the moment. Like, Street Dreams is not bad. Breathe is one of my favorite records. A great street record. Um, but a lot of other Fabulous records, not not a big fan. But for the '90s, I was never a big fan of E40. Not a big fan of 8 Ball and MJG. I still don't like those guys. I never really liked the 3 6 Mafia. Uh, this is where I kind of gonna go on my I hate the South kind of, because I used to hate the South a lot. But that was before I really listened to like Scarface and UGK and really gave Outkast a chance, because Outkast, like when I was a kid, uh, me and my boy Young Certs, his brother used to love Outkast. He's a big Outkast fan. And I always thought they were just weird. Kind of like if he was looking at Funkadelic or Earth, Wind, and Fire. Like, I get it now, but back then I was like, these niggas corny. I don't know. This dude wearing a football pads with a skirt. Like, nah, man, we good. Like, I get it now. He's just being eclectic. But back then I was like, yeah, these dudes weirdos. I don't want to be part of that. Um, but I still don't like 8 Ball and MJG. I still don't like 3 6 Mafia. Um, who else? Still don't like E40. Not a fan. The most overrated artist of all time, however, is your boy Tupac Shakur. Everybody knows that, but that's just me asking for trouble. That's just me asking for trouble. I don't even tell people my opinion on Tupac anymore, because I sit here and argue with people about Tupac all day. Why do you think wrestlers nowadays aren't megastars like Hogan, Rock, Cena, Austin are? Lack of storylines, and the characters either don't attract people the same way. Like, and sometimes the guys are not around long enough. You know, I think nowadays dudes try to run off to Hollywood too quick. You know, I think Roman is getting there. I don't think he's there yet. You know, I don't think he's there yet. But Roman's going to get there. I think. I think he's as close as he's going to get to being a household name. Darren Miles, he's got 6 questions. He just got these in yesterday. What's your favorite rapper you thought 6 have been better? Hold on, you thought have been bigger? P.S. I always thought Cameron and DJ Quick was also overshadowed. Oh, okay. So let me put this in English. What's your favorite rapper you thought should have been bigger? Okay. I always thought DJ Quick and Cameron was always overshadowed. DJ Quick is a good one. You know, for a guy who could rap, make beats, and engineer, it's weird that he didn't become a bigger star, you know, especially since he did so much work that Dr. Dre took credit for. Also, Snoop Dogg is one of the most overrated rappers of the 90s, too. Even though Doggy Style is a classic, Snoop Dogg, I can tell you a great Snoop Dogg album after that. There were some okay ones, like The Last Meal was okay, but the Snoop Dogg has always been more of a great singles kind of guy. He put out great singles, but now he doesn't even write his own music, so I really kind of writing him off. But back to this question: who I thought should have been bigger? Uh, I think Joel Santana. I think Cameron wanted more for Jewels, and he was very disappointed. Same thing with Lloyd Banks. I think they had the same problem. They got too much too soon, and the streets. I mean, people love Lloyd Banks today. I was never a big Lloyd Banks guy. I don't like his voice, but I think both of those guys were being pushed, but they didn't produce. Like they could have good verses, but where they weren't really making good songs. And then people just kind of stopped caring. They became mixtape rappers. Well, Lloyd Banks did. And Joel's his teeth falling out of his mouth. I have no idea what's going on with him. So that's unfortunate. Um, I think that Lupe Fiasco uh, underperformed. I think the label disputes that happened around lasers. I think the political disputes that happened around lasers killed his career. You know, him saying that Obama was a terrorist, that did it. Most people didn't take him seriously after that. And then he made some really bullshit songs too. Look, he got back on course later on, you know, when he started being able to do what he wanted to do. So like Food and Liquor 2, um, Tetsuo and Youth, those are really good albums. That Samurai shit he just made, though, forget it. I didn't like that. But that's why I didn't talk about it. I didn't like that. But I thought it seemed like they were setting up Lupe Fiasco to be the Nas of this generation. And it seemed like he should have been. But he dropped the ball by being honest and calling Obama a terrorist. You know, it is what it is. Who else should have been bigger that I think should have been bigger? Hmm. Who else? It's hard to say because I want to pick people who had the opportunity, like who was like right there, but kind of fell short. Maybe Currency, because Currency is so consistent, but sometimes that's a bad thing because he's so consistent that he can do his albums in his sleep, and you can listen to like 10 Currency albums and not tell one from the other. And like it's hard, like from that perspective. Like maybe he should have been a bigger artist, but maybe he had the career he should have had. You know, I'm not saying he's lazy. I know that Freddie Gibbs thinks he's lazy, but I just think he's just consistent. Like he's mastered his thing and he does it so well that he doesn't need to put in the extra mile. You know, and I don't think his fans actually want him to do that. I think they like him right where he is. I think Game is another one. Game has so much potential, but he's such a fucking liar and a backstabber and a sneak disser and a weirdo. But when you listen to Game rap, he's so good at rapping. He's really good at rapping. Very good. But you listen to an interview, he's a liar. He's full of shit. He's full of cap. He's cap all that goddamn day. And that kind of hurts his legacy because people are kind of like, man, get this nigga out of here. You don't want to listen to him. You don't want to listen to him. You can't learn nothing from him. But he's really good at rapping, though. I do like Game. Who else? Joey Badass. I think he went into acting. That kind of took him away from rapping. But he was supposed to be the guy who was going to bring some new life to New York. And he was moving it away from. I saw a collision course between him and ASAP Rocky. I kind of saw that it was gonna, if they had both had kept up. ASAP Rocky is also on this list too. But if they had kept it up, they probably would have ended up colliding because ASAP Rocky is a New York Negro who is influenced by the South. And you had Joey Badass, who was a young dude from New York who was trying to bring the New York sound back and was openly talking about, a lot of guys aping the South and trying to bring that Southern style to New York or whatever. And I saw like maybe these guys are going to end up, bumping heads eventually. But both of them pretty much went in separate directions, and neither one of them became what they should have been. So it's unfortunate. Two, his second question. Will we ever get a big 3 or 4 wrestling promotions running head to head like we did in the territory days? There's not enough money. There's not enough money. Nobody's willing to put the money into these companies to make 4 or 5 of them. If there's a dollar to be made, WWE is trying to make it. So if they start up a new streaming service, WWE is going to throw NXT on it or something like that. That's just how they do, man. It would be nice if we could get somebody to dump $100 million into TNA and they could be independent, and then we could have some real competition where people can start bidding on talent that's on that lower end. Like one of the bigger problems with TNA is they can't afford anybody. So people will sign with Ring of Honor and just be rotting in Ring of Honor rather than working in TNA in a top spot. There's plenty of people who are in Ring of Honor right now who could probably be a top guy in TNA, but they would rather be a mid-card jabroni in Ring of Honor. And it's likely due to money. And that's unfortunate. But there's not enough money floating around to make this happen. 3, how would you make pro wrestling now hot again? I don't know. Like, it's hard to do that because part of the thing is thinking outside the box might get you canceled because you never know what ideas you might have that something's going to offend somebody. So I think a lot of people are walking around with a muzzle on, and they're trying to make these things, and they're also trying to do the diversity stuff, and again, not offend anybody. It's like part of communication is the risk of offense. It's like, that's one of my favorite Jordan Peterson quotes. It's like, it's easy to talk to a person one-on-one and not offend them and not piss them off. But when you're talking to 100 people, it's different. Talk to 1,000 people. If you're a wrestling company and you're running a show for 20,000 people, you trying to tell me you're not going to piss off anybody? You're not going to upset anybody? I mean, like that's impossible, man. It's literally impossible. And people get offended by little things. Like this whole Anthony Bowen situation and him flopping as a singles act. There's a lot of gay people who are like, oh, why can't, the gay guy get an opportunity? It's like, come on, man, he sucks. He's boring. He's boring. So I don't know. 4, how did you feel when the government spent billions of dollars off of the Y2K scare? It kind of reminds me of the 2012 so-called end of the world prophecy. Now, there's a lot of people who claim that there was folks that actually did save our lives from the Y2K scare. it's entirely impossible to know because nothing happened. It's almost like saying you would have got hit in the head with an anvil if you lived in Cincinnati. You're like, well, I never lived in Cincinnati, so I'm never going to have that problem. So I never can prove whether you're right or wrong. So I don't know, but they did scare the shit out of people, didn't they? 5. How come the hang person Page won't fight for a neutral gender belt? Hey, why won't he give Tony Storm a title match? How about that? Maybe he should. Maybe somebody should challenge him to do that. If men and women are equal, you should defend your title against Tony Storm and see what happens. AEW might be dumb enough to do it, and you know what? It might get an initial pop too. People might actually be like, "What? They're doing men versus women? Ooh, that's interesting." And then as soon as the woman wins, they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, it's over. Oh yeah, it's over." And she should win too. She should beat him. 6. I'm going through a quote unquote assault investigation. Oh no. At my job, this one girl basically lied on my name and said I sprayed her with bleach. Even though I was doing my job cleaning the sign, while I was cleaning the sign, she threatened to push me off the ladder while I was on the ladder. And then she clocked out. She called me a retard. I've already sent my statement to HR and I am currently suspended. I was wondering, should I fight this quote unquote investigation or just quit my job? Well, well, all right, here's I don't know if you're here, Darren Miles. I would say this. Does your job have cameras? If your job has cameras, then it might be worth fighting. Okay. Just for the principle. Because if she was standing like it's depending on how high up you were, if you even if you did spray her, shit, she was threatening to knock you off this high ass ladder. You could have gotten hurt. That would be a kind of a self defense thing. If but here's my thing. Is this something you want to do for the rest of your life? How old are you? Like, is this something you want to do for the rest of your life? If it's a headache, just get a new job. If she's going to still be there, there's no point. Just get a new job. If you're suspended, they're giving you the opportunity to go and get a new job. Like, there's certain times where you should fight for the job if you feel like you didn't do anything wrong. But if you feel like you did something wrong, but you were kind of forced into it because maybe you did squirt the bitch because she was being an asshole, and then they're not going to do anything about it. So it means you're going to continue having problems with this girl. So you better off just getting a new job. You know, defend your name for sure, but don't let it feel like you have to. Um, it's a principle of the matter. Nah, you have to decide what is worth putting your energy into. If this job is not worth putting your energy into, go get a new job. It's just that's if you can. Like if it was hard for you to find this one, then maybe you might want to fight for it. If you get paid enough and you kind of can't afford to miss 2, 3 paychecks, because you might have to miss a paycheck or two, especially if you're suspended, you're going to miss some paychecks. And then, if you go to a new job, you got to work like a week in a hole or something like that. Yeah, it might be, you might not be in a financial position to quit. But if you got decent savings and you can find another job pretty quickly, I would suggest just moving on. This is the kind of situation where um not that one person can ruin the job, but it also depends on how you are in that moment. Because you can have issues with people and then hopefully you can squash them. But if she ran to HR on you, it's probably going to be a consistent thing. That's going to be tough. I would suggest not getting into it with women at the workplace, though. They almost always side with women. But also, see if there were any witnesses and see if there was any cameras or anything like that. The Generate Sharingan has 6 questions. 1. What's the worst tribalist wrestling fans or tribalist wrestlers? What's worse, tribalist wrestling fans or tribalist wrestlers? Oh, the fans are worse. The wrestlers, at least they're getting paid. Like Ricochet is being paid. I don't care what he thinks. He's doing commercials for AEW because he works for AEW. So I mean, he's being paid by Tony Khan to lick the boot. So I'm not mad. When Seth Rollins used to say all that weird stuff about WWE, I'm like, man, what do you think? He's getting paid. So what? They're paying this man. Get paid, brother. Two, how on earth is Amanda Seals a radical when she's been on national TV and been in some major modern TV shows? That's a good question. Only the elites can be radicals, really. Everybody else is trying to figure out how to make a living. The elites finds new ways of being offended and being upset. She's been on television since she was a little. She also had a thriving music career. She was a rapper, singer. She went on tour with Flowetry. When I think Marsha, did she take Marsha Ambrosius spot or the other lady? One of the others. She was on tour with them for a while. She's got so much success, but that's all professional success. You see that she sits over in a cluttered apartment by herself, and she's like 40 years old, fucking rapper. So I mean, she's that's probably why she's radical. What is this stuck to my leg? That's probably why she's so upset. Three, I'm not a fan of either political wing, but why is it that it's only a grift when its conservatives get labeled as grifters? That's one of the funny things is that, and we this situation just happened again with Killer Mike and Chad O. Jackson. When Chad O. Jackson has been criticizing Martin Luther King, Killer Mike goes on Shannon Sharp's radio. He goes on his podcast and basically says, "Who's paying him?" It's like, wait a second. Why is it that whenever somebody criticizes one of your sacred cows, it's got to be because they're being paid to do so? It can't ever be legitimate. It's always got to be casting some aspersion onto what a black conservative does. This is where you get the idea that black people should be unified in things, and these things should be axiomatically good. Who dislikes Martin Luther King? Like, he's giving you the reasons why he's not a Martin Luther King fan. I mean, you could say these things are true or they aren't true or whatever. And then also, it's one thing if he switched what he was saying, like, Jesse Jackson, when when he wanted some money, he all of a sudden he's pushing abortion when he was against abortion before. That's when you could say, who's paying off my brother? But if the guy's been relatively consistent, that's just how he feels. But it's only black conservatives that get criticized that way. You never see, well, conservatives in general get criticized that way, and they always take. And the crazy thing is, there's no money in it. Like the there is more money in playing to black people's insecurities than there is in telling them the truth. There is no look at what again, Colin Kaepernick, a mediocre NFL quarterback. He's made more money outside the NFL than he ever would have made on the field. A guy like Ibram X. Kendi, whose brain is basically tied in a knot, has made himself like multiple number one books. He's a moron, but he says all the right stuff. They don't realize that there is more money in being a loud, outspoken black liberal than there is in being a black conservative. They seem to think that these black conservatives are all super wealthy. Chad O. Jackson is a smart guy, but he was self-employed. You know, he didn't. He ran his own plumbing company. These guys are like quote unquote intellectuals. I think they were charging like $50,000 to have a 30-minute conversation with Ibram X. Kendi. But Chad O. Jackson is the grifter? Huh? Nobody asks these questions though. It's always, questioning your motives or saying that you were being paid. because it's another one of the many ways where they can just not think. They don't have to deal with what you're saying. They could just say, no, you're being paid, you're being bought off. Like, okay, well, whatever. 4, who do you consider to be a great worker, wrestler, but not so good natural athlete? CM Punk, he sucks as an athlete. He's very unathletic. He's never been a good athlete. he's never he's never been a good athlete. Hulk Hogan is another one. John Cena is another one. Cena always moved weird usually because he was carrying so much muscle. But I don't think he's naturally athletic. Lex Luger. Now I'm just talking about bodybuilders. I'm just talking bodybuilders now. 5, are the women carrying WWE? Unfortunately, I mean, they're not doing such a great job on SmackDown, but on Raw, it's absolutely the women. Rhea Ripley gets the biggest reactions. She's in a top storyline with the Joshi bloodline, and they're doing a whole lot of good stuff there. And obviously the women carry NXT. They're the crown jewel of NXT. SmackDown, not so much, because everything is a mess on SmackDown. 6, thoughts on the passing of Asada Shakur. I read on something that she was one of the downfalls of the Black Panthers was that they read too much Mao and Lenin instead of Garvey. It's funny you say that. I'm going to be talking about that this weekend. But I'm not going to. I've never was interested in Asada Shakur. And she just wasn't an interesting character to me because a lot of the totems from the like her and Mumia Abu Jamal, he's far more interesting than Mumia. But one thing about Asada Shakur that I found to be very interesting is that she's been in Cuba for like 30 years, right? And there's a bounty on her head. But in that entire 30 years, not one starving Cuban ever said, "Oh yeah, I know where she is." Like, I don't think that the government really cared about Asada Shakur. And that's just me being honest. I don't think they really gave a shit. The idea that look, the government wanted Whitey Bulger. They never stopped looking for Whitey Bulger. And then they eventually found him and threw his ass in prison. Asada Shakur, she's on an island, and they put a bounty on her head, and not one fucking Cuban that was starving and hungry on that island of broke Cubans ever said, like, you know what? Yeah, I know where she is. They probably knew where she was and didn't care. Something tells me that they knew and they did not care because bringing her back wouldn't have done anything anyway. I don't think they cared about the police officer that got killed. I don't think they cared about him. They don't really care. I mean, the thing about all of these people are a lot of them got away with killing these cops. Huey Newton got away with killing that cop. All right. He went to prison in 1968. He got out in 1970. He beat the case. These people who tell you constantly that a black man can't get a fair trial, he beat that case. Bobby Seale beat that case in Massachusetts, where they were also charged with killing a police officer. He beat that case too. Yale University, the president of Yale University, came out and said, well, I don't think the Black Panthers can get a fair trial anywhere in the United States. What? The president of Yale University? They don't care about these people. All right. They did not give a shit about Asada Shakur. Just like they knew that Bill Ayers and all these people were professors in universities. If the government really cared about these far left terrorists, they would have done something. They didn't care. They knew where these people were. They was keeping track of them likely the whole time. They didn't care. She was harmless as long as she was in Cuba. She can't really do much of anything. She sends poems or whatever. to some small socialist newspaper that has no real authority outside the black community. She becomes like this big totem or whatever, and nobody really cares. Nobody really. She doesn't make any major changes. She's not even as important as Angela Davis. Angela Davis dying is actually would be probably more damage to that community than Joanne Byron or Joanne Chesimard. You know, she just wasn't that important. That's why I never read the book. I never read that book. Everybody keeps saying like you read the Black Panthers and New African stuff. You read that stuff. Why did you never read Asada Shakur's book? She's boring. You know, I don't see anything interesting about what she would have written that I would have cared about. I just don't see it. And when she got sent to Cuba, she pretty much fell off the face of the earth. All of her missives and everything went to these very small socialist newspapers. Same thing as Mumia Abu Jamal. He was actually more of a big deal because he was doing the radio tapes from live from Death Row. Mumia Abu Jamal. Everybody they swore he was gonna die. He was like 2 seconds from dying every time you listen to one of these tapes. They're gonna kill Mumia. Yeah, he's still alive. He's like 80 something too. But yeah, I just never thought she was all that important, you know. But the destruction of the Black Panther Party, a lot of that has to do with them being communists. Also, it has a lot to do with them being crackheads. A lot of them being crackheads. uh, I'm gonna do a very interesting thing this weekend. Hopefully, you guys enjoy it. The M Studios. He got 6 questions. All right, 1. Is it just or do a lot of WWE main stars you see on Raw and SmackDown feel lifeless and boring? All I see lately is nothing but long entrances and catchphrases with little to no substance with the characters. Well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Now, I'll say this. I think they are trying to add something to some of the characters, like Jey Uso having some edge to him. You know, like the second gear that they're doing with Asuka. You know, they're trying to add some substance to EO, but most people, Tiffany Stratton being number 1 above them, and LA Knight, they basically just come out, they say their catchphrase, and that's it. You know, they wrestle their match, and that's it. It's like, wow. Shockingly little that you can get out of them. And I like Tiffany, but it's been like this for months. You know, ever since WrestleMania, they haven't really let her develop. LA Knight haven't really developed him either. But Jey Uso, and he's really good. I don't think he needs to be world champion and all that, but he's really good at playing what he's doing right now. This sort of impressionable, frustrated. And he did it for years, you know, from 2020 to 2023. He was really good in that role. And he's back at it. And this is the best part of what Jey Uso can do. Unfortunately, his work rate has diminished. And a lot of that is because his entrance has gotten so long and it's so energetic that it blows him up before his match starts. He's not a spring chicken. He's like 40. Second, do you think Triple H did a huge disservice to Cody Rhodes as WWE champion? His last reign and his current run as champion has been lackluster at best. Well, yeah, because he ain't doing anything. I can't think of what Cody Rhodes did after becoming champion. He feuded with Kevin Owens because they were friends, and then they're not friends anymore. He feuded with AJ Styles. He respected AJ Styles until AJ Styles gave him a reason not to. And then John Cena turned heel. That was a disaster, utter disaster. And then John Cena turned babyface and destroyed him. And then he started feuding with Drew McIntyre, and now he's arguing with Seth Rollins again. It's just no. Nope, they're not helping him. They're not doing him no favors. I'm not a Cody crybaby, but I like Cody. I think that he's a good quarterback for WWE. You know, the fans like him. They're not turning on him yet. They turned on him when Cena was on the other side of the ring, but that's John Cena. It's just that the storylines are very boring. They're not doing much of anything. You saw that he can be really good when he was in there with The Rock. Then you see what he can do when he's challenged. Because he really stood his ground and did some great work with The Rock, which it could have been very easily for him to be overshadowed in that situation, but he wasn't. He stood up, he did his thing. But who else is there? Like, who are you taking from the mid card and putting them in that spot? They don't even do a Randy Orton. They're not even trying. It's a disaster. It sucks. 3. What are some stupid storylines that most fans hated that you personally enjoyed? The Picky James story. I thought that was funny because it's so ridiculous. She wasn't even fat. Like, that was the weird thing, and that's and that's probably what made it so funny to me is because she was thick, but she wasn't even thick like a rapper thick, rapper baddie thick. She was thick for like a white woman. Like, and I liked what I was looking at in Picky James at the time, but I thought it was funny, and everybody else was like, "Oh my god!" Yeah, like, what are you talking about? How are you fat shaming a woman who's not fat? And she beat him up. She beat both of them up and covered them in cake or something like that at the end of the story. Like, come on, what are you talking about? But I thought that was fun. I always think ridiculous things like that is fun. I like ridiculous storylines, man. As long as you don't go too far. Like Katie Vick might be too far. Katie Vick is too far. That's over the line. But I thought I thought the Alexa Bliss Randy Orton thing was humorous. Everybody was tripping about that too. Like, you thought they were gonna have a real match? How can they have a real match? She's like 4'11". It's not real. You know, I thought that it was entertaining. It, forced Randy Orton to do some acting, and it was cool for the Thunderdome thing, so he could do some theatrical stuff. I thought that was entertaining. Um, 4. If you were in charge of booking a Rey Mysterio retirement tour, what kind of matches or feuds would you book? I would do it similar to what they're doing with John Cena, except I would never turn him heel. I would bring in a lot of his long-term opponents, people who are still active, and I would have him wrestle those guys probably in Mexico one more time. I would do a mixture of Mexico and America. For instance, guys like Psychosis and Juventud Guerrera, you know, I don't know about Juvi. I don't know. I think Psychosis is currently hurt too. But yeah, like those two especially, I would try to do like one more match with those guys. That would be great. And then if you could get him in there, like a lot of his biggest feuds in the United States were like Kurt Angle, who can't go anymore, Eddie Guerrero, who's passed away, um, Jericho. Jericho's still around, so maybe you can get another lengthy run with him and Jericho if Jericho was to come back to WWE, of course. You can always do some stuff that they always wanted to do in Mexico, like if there are some guys in Mexico that you could have him work with, and the the end of it will obviously be him losing his mask to Dominic, where he's unmasked by his son at WrestleMania, hopefully in the main event. 5. Do you think is overrated babyface and heel in all of wrestling, past or present? Overrated babyface and heel. Hmm. It's a good question. Hmm. That's a good question. It would be easy for me to say it's like some dude on the indies because everybody on the indies is basically nothing, But um, it's hard to say. Maybe I probably would say the cleaner is like one of the most overrated heel gimmicks because it wasn't really a gimmick. It was just him wearing a black jacket. It- and I think he used to do like a sweep motion. Kenny Omega is weird. And I always thought like everything he did was very overrated. I was just kind of not a big fan. And it might be him on both sides. It might be him as both babyface and a heel. Um, but the cleaner, I never really got it. He looked a lot like Brian Pillman to me, and I was like, very, very athletic, but not enough cheating. Never really felt like he was evil or I hated him. And that's what I'm looking for out of heels. I'm not looking for oh yeah, you're the athletic equal to the baby face. I don't really care about that. Like what I like about heels is even if I don't hate you, I can see why other people would, you know? Like a Brock Lesnar. So big, so powerful, fast. He's basically like a Gary Stu. I see why everybody hates him. There's no reason like anybody should be able to beat Brock Lesnar. Like you can't out wrestle him. He's an NCAA champion. So psychology wise, you trying to grab a leg ain't gonna work. He's gigantic and full of steroids, so you're not stronger than he is. Like it's just like no, your psychology of how to tackle a Brock Lesnar is crazy. He definitely going to have to put some thought into it. That's what makes the matches so interesting to me. It also makes what makes him such an interesting baby face. Um, Likewise with Kurt Angle, it's like he had an Olympic gold medal. This is professional wrestling. You're not going to out wrestle Kurt Angle, but at the same time, he's so silly. He doesn't take himself seriously. So you could do the lucha libre stuff and get away with it because it's not Olympic style wrestling, which is traditional, and he's going to kill you in that. But a lot of misdirection, head scissors, and hurricanranas and stuff like that, you can get away with that stuff with Kurt. Arm drags and shit. And I love them as heels because they can be very vicious. But when it comes to like the age of the athletic heel, I don't like these guys. There's no reason to not like them. Even if they're showboats, they're not showboaty enough. That's what people talk about, like Kyle Fletcher. Like, I grew up on Rob Van Dam. Rob Van Dam kick a dude in the head with a chair and then started pointing at his shoulders. you know, it's I don't know, man. Rob Van Dam just start talking to the camera. It's just like really cool shit. I don't know. It's hard, but I think Kenny Omega might be on both sides though. 6. With Cena retiring at the end of the year, what are some of your favorite matches or moments of Cena's career? Big fan of his 2015-2016 match list. The matches with Kevin Owens, really good. The matches with AJ Styles, really good. Enjoyed the match with Roman Reigns as well. I enjoyed his early part of his career too. Not the earliest part. His beginning of the main event run. His bloodbath with Bradshaw. The first matches he had with Kurt Angle as a main event guy. I enjoyed those. I loved the match with Shawn at WrestleMania 23. That was great. Obviously, it was all Shawn, but it was great. I enjoyed his matches with Edge in 2006. Uh, when it comes to moments, I enjoyed him burying the Nexus. Oh, that was great. And it was well deserved because the Nexus fucking sucked. They were great as a collective, but they didn't individualize any of the characters, so they were all pointless. I still remember that episode of, not the whole episode of Raw, but when he and Jerry King Lawler roasted Vicky Guerrero, and he said that Vicky is so fat she wakes up in sections. Boy, I will never forget that. I'll never forget that. Oh, that was great. Uh, I didn't necessarily like his back and forth with The Rock. I feel like he was taking the piss. You don't think he was too serious about those. I don't think he wanted to do the job either. The second match with him and The Rock was better than the first one, I think. Of course, his matches with CM Punk were really good. Of course, the match with Danielson was great. The promo segments with those guys, the promo segments with like Kevin Owens were really good too, especially when it was John Cena tipping his hat to those dudes while tearing them apart. That was fantastic. You know, the John Cena versus indie guys was such an amazing storyline. It always worked. Regardless of who the fucking indie guy was, it always worked. Because it was always the same shit. I'm not supposed to be here. You're not a real wrestler. And then Cena tear into him with a promo, go out there and have a badass match, make him look good, and that's it. Whether he won or lost, his opponent looked good. I was always appreciated that. I wish we could have gotten like a John Cena versus Jeff Hardy feud. But I don't like the idea of a heel Jeff Hardy. And I don't think Jeff could have hung with Cena on the mic. Just the idea of the two, you know, fan bases colliding. That's kind of what I was thinking about in terms of me thinking like why we never got a John Cena versus Jeff Hardy big main event match. But then again, the same reason you don't get it is you don't want to turn that. Obviously, if you'd have did that, people would have turned on Cena. He'd have got booed out of the building. It'd have been worse than Rob Van Dam in Philly, which was also a fantastic match. How Cena carried himself that whole night was next level. Very, very professional. All right, WG Phil, he's got 4 questions. 1, if you had to choose 5 WWE superstars, past or present, Attitude Era to present, to fight Broly from Super, who are the 5 you would might have a chance? Oh, uh, let's see. 1998 Stone Cold Steve Austin. Brock Lesnar, clearly. Um, let's see. Undertaker, that's 3. Super Cena, that's 4. 5, let's see. Batista, maybe. Uh, yeah, let's just go with Batista. 2, are the holidays dying? No, man, you just getting old. Somewhere there's a kid very excited for Halloween right now. Every time I used to think like that. Like, man, the holidays don't hit the same no more. I'm like, dude, you're 40. Before, of course, the holidays don't hit the same no more. People don't get you stuff for Christmas anymore. Now people expect you to get them stuff for Christmas. You know, mm, you're lucky if you get a phone call on your birthday. That kind of shit. Thanksgiving is still it don't hit the same no more since my grandma passed, since my aunties passed. That's another thing about getting older. Like all my favorite older family members are gone. You know, so the holidays aren't the same anymore. I feel bad about that. 3, I haven't watched WWE actively since SummerSlam. When Cena retires, how much of an audience shedding could hurt WWE as people are more vocal about stopping watching WWE as he was the last thing keeping late 90s, late 2000s kids, now adults, into the product? Ooh, that's going to be interesting. That's going to be a tough one. I'm telling you. That one is going to be tough. And I hope TKO is ready because the merch hit is already going to be nuts. That's going to be where they're going to be very, very upset. They're probably still going to have to put out John Cena merchandise. The thing is, they're probably going to have to put some kind of caveat on this where he's not going to wrestle anymore or the end of his active wrestling career. And then he's going to go into like a semi-retirement because they're going to want to sell more T-shirts and hats and gimmicks. They don't have anybody that can sell gimmicks like that now. Roman can sell a T-shirt. But can Roman sell a T-shirt, a hat, an armband, a towel? Like I don't know, man. Whoosh. This is about to be I bet Vince will start chuckling when he when he thinks about this. He's gonna be like, "Ooh, you boys are in trouble. Cena is gone. That merch money about to dry up." I'm not even talking about the audience shedding yet, which is going to happen for sure. It's going to be substantial too. They're going to hope that guys like Cody and Roman are enough to keep those people engaged. But they're not. Roman's not there enough, so it's not going to be him. He's not around long enough. So there's no telling. I guess they're going to lean into Randy once Cena's gone. I guess that's going to be the next step, is to lean into Randy Orton, trying to make him this huge merchandise. But Randy's never been a big merchandise mover. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a pretty big drop off too. That's going to be sad. I'm interested. 4. Richard Zach has lost around 200 subscribers for shitting on the success of Demon Slayer, and his audience are slowly turning on him for his awful take of correlating anime fans to school shooters. I don't understand why anybody still listens to the guy. He seemingly lost his mind like a year or two ago. I think the Mark Wade lawsuit kind of broke his brain. And I think that part of it was he didn't get the support that he thought he was going to get in that. But he also gave up on people too. And I think when everybody else started doing crowdfunding, it became harder for him to do crowdfunding, and that became a problem too. So I think a lot of this became personal between him and his own fan base, and he started splitting the fan bases. It's similar to what um, Ethan Van Sciver did. He tried to cultivate loyalty, which doesn't make sense. But I don't understand how anime fans become school shooters. It just sounds stupid. Like that's not even an intelligent thing to say. You know, it's not even remotely intelligent. But he has always been I prefer American comic books to manga and anime. Well, if that's the point, you just don't talk about it. It's all sequential storytelling, but I don't know, man. It's gonna be he's. I'm surprised it's only 200. I'm surprised his channel is still operating at a high enough level for him to make any money off of it. And I looked most recently, he's still going after Wes from Thinking Critical. He was talking shit about him recently. I was like, I don't get it. I don't understand what he's getting out of this. But whatever. JS, he says, would you have Dax Harwood, Adam Page, and AJ Lee give you a 5-hour lecture on mansplaining, or watching Triple H promo putting himself over on loop for 5 hours? Can I heckle Dax Harwood, Adam Page, and AJ Lee? Because if I can heckle, I'll do it. I'll probably just fall asleep, and they'd probably be so. I think Triple H would probably not even notice if I fell asleep. That's the bad part. He'd probably just start talking about himself, and next thing you know, I'm just out of it, bruh. Okay, let's see. People say they got some more questions in here. Let's see. Darren Miles dumped some questions from yesterday in the wrong question bin. Oh, well, it's the same questions he asked. No, it's one of the questions is the same. One of these things says, will MLW ever get big? No. Court Bauer doesn't make any money. I don't believe Court Bauer makes any money. I truly believe he's burning through that $20 million that WWE gave him. He ain't got much more to go. I don't believe Court Bauer makes a whole lot of money. I don't. I do like MLW though. It's the perfect mixture of TNA and Lucha Libre. So WG Phil posted up some more questions. With WWE trying to add more people in the writing room, does WWE realize that it's Triple H Road Dogg themselves that has the issue with the booking? I don't think Triple H recognizes Road. I think Road Dogg is his friend, and he doesn't want to get rid of Road Dogg, so he's going to make any excuse possible. That's unfortunate. With AEW getting 300,000 viewers, do you think AEW will continue to go on after the 5-year extension? And with Netflix and Paramount planning to buy Warner, should they be concerned? Well, let's put it into context. They got 300,000 viewers going head to head with NXT on an off night. This is not their regular night. It's still bad. It's still very bad because all of their fans know that the show was on. Okay. All of their fans knew that the show was on Tuesday. So it wasn't like the fans didn't know. The issue here is going to be what happens to Warner. If Warner gets bought by Paramount and then TKO swoops in and gets an exclusive, then they're cooked. And they might as well go all in on Amazon, which they probably will do. But also remember, Tony Khan's a billionaire. He might have something up his sleeve that we're not even prepared for. If he wants this company to exist, it will exist. In what way, we don't know. If he has to file a lawsuit to get them on Tubi or Roku or Hulu or Fubo or something, he will. And I don't doubt that at all. You know, I don't think he's going to give up just because Warner Brothers pulled the cord. What might end up happening, however, is that it ends up like TNA, where it loses a major distributor and it ends up going to some second or third tier distributor, and then the fan base starts to whittle off. Because that's what happened with TNA. Once it went to Pop TV, that was it. Because it started bleeding viewers right there. Because who the fuck has Pop TV? And then it went to, what was it, Destination America? What is that? Who has that station? And that's how it starts. When you lose the major support, that's going to be when the issue starts. But if he can get on like Fox Sports or something like that, he might be able to save the company. Might be able to take the company overseas and get like a BBC license or something. Like you never can tell when it comes to Tony Khan and what ideas are floating around. Another question. He says, "Are both the left and right becoming racist? They both hate the top hats, but for different reasons. The right due to the IQ to JQ and Israel for the left. The Saudis, like you mean the Saudis, due to their growing influence in entertainment. The whites feeling the victims from fatigue, and Asians are happy to be adjacent to whiteness. Do you think we will end up segregating in the next 50 or so years?" Well, I think we're already pretty segregated. The hatred of Israel has always been there from both sides for the same reasons. The right has notoriously hated Jews, and the left has always pretended that they like Jews while also, at the same time trying to be pro-Palestine, which doesn't work. You can't. I mean, you can't split the baby on that issue. I do think that the whites are getting mad, and that's going to be an interesting thing because they're starting to get woke too, but they're getting woke in a very different way. But it's necessary, you know, when you can't coexist and you consistently playing the race card, you force the other people to play the race card. Now the only way white people feel like they can get forward is they play the race card too. And blacks are not going to give up the only thing they got left, and Hispanics are not going to give it up. The Asians don't really play the race card as it is. The Indians, kind of. The Arabs do too. They play the Muslim card mostly. So Everybody's gonna play the cards they dealt, and it's gonna be a whole lot of um, tribalism and bullshit. But I think most of the time, most of the people are not going to be at each other's throats. I expect some harsh, coarse language. Like I'm seeing a lot of, some harsh language for the blacks, but I don't think anybody's gonna go out and start lynching Negroes. And I can stomach people saying negative things about black people. I don't care about that. The issue I'm gonna see is I don't want to see, ratcheting up of the violence. People talking shit about Hispanics or Muslims or whatever. I mean, it is what it is. It's the internet. You can't stop that. But I don't think it needs to ratchet up to the point of violence. I think Steven Crowder, I watched a video of him yelling at some black guys earlier today, and the black guys yelling at him. I'm like, are these people even listening to each other, or are they just yelling at each other? Like I don't know. But Steven Crowder was telling the black guys about how white fatigue is a real thing, and they're tired of the racism and all this sort of stuff. And the black guys, of course, was poo pooing it because the whites were never slaves and all this other bullshit. I'm like, man, they're both talking to brick walls. They're both talking to the brick wall, But there are more black people listening now than ever, So there's more black people listening. There's black fans of Nick Fuentes and black fans of like Stefan Molyneux, and they don't always have the nicest things to say about black people. So there's going to be a medium. I think there's going to be some mutual respect, especially when white men start standing up for themselves. It's going to be like mutual respect, I think, but they're going to have to actually do it. Part of the reason why the white fatigue has been occurring is because in conversations, especially, whites have allowed themselves to be steamrolled by black people in conversations. And once they stop allowing black people to run over them by calling them names and such, the conversations will change. They don't have to, you know. Next, 8 with Julia, half white. Her dad is white, but can't speak English. What is the point of her even being on the main roster if you don't pair her up with Asuka? I think she's doing a good job with Kiana James. I just think that they didn't introduce her properly, and they're not getting over her character. We don't know what Julia is and what she's supposed to do. Like the beautiful madness. What does that mean? We don't know what that means. What is her mission statement? She came in immediately won a title, no feuds. Now she's basically the crown jewel of Kiana James' like agency. Okay, good, but there should be some storylines there. We should have seen the negotiations and all that kind of stuff. We should see that Kiana James is like dressing Julia up, maybe putting her in like a mink coat with some nice shades and stuff like that. And all these sorts of things. She's rolling up in a limo or with like some kind of big jack dude opening the door for her. That kind of stuff. Really kind of showing her what Kiana James brings to the table. So when they break up, all that stuff can be gone. You know what I mean? Next, 9. If people stop watching WWE due to how bad Triple H booking is, do you think that people will stop watching wrestling altogether because both AEW and main roster WWE is garbage? What do you think will happen to WWE and AEW in the next streaming television rights renewal? Do you think they will shut both companies down? No. As long as there's people willing to give money to these companies are going to take it. And then, if the worst comes to worst, WWE is going to sell the company. The TKO is going to be sold to Saudi Arabia for like $100 billion. There's nothing that's going to happen. There's nothing that's going to happen. It's going to be fine. There's always streaming services and TV networks that need content, always. And as long as there's TV networks that need content, wrestling is content. That's what it boils down to. 10, worst case scenario, if WWE or AEW were to shut down or downsize, reboot due to declining ratings, or fail to get a new channel, what would be a good PLE pay-per-view send-off, and what are the top 3 matches from each company you think should headline the final show? And if you were to do one crossover match, who would the competitors be? I can envision WWE just being a tape library and continue making toys and video games. Well, I think WWE going out of business is like impossible. It's not possible. It's too. It's like thinking about, I don't know, Marvel Comics going out of business. Like people don't buy comic books anymore, but Marvel still prints comics. Because they still make TV shows, still make movies. It ain't as strong in its original form. So let's say WWE loses its TV deal, and they'll obviously land somewhere else, but they'll still be the WWE, which means as long as they can still produce video games and action figures and merchandise, they'll be fine. Because that's been the WWE's strongest suit since 1985. They are a powerhouse when it comes to marketing and merchandise. They will still have John Cena on the cover of lunch boxes and video games, and Stone Cold Steve Austin on the cover of video games and lunch boxes and T-shirts. As long as they can sell Stone Cold, Rock, and NWO DX merchandise, they're going to be fucking fine. I wouldn't even be considered that they're going to go out of business. All right. Let's go into the comment section on the actual stream now, because I've read all the questions that were in the question box. So let's see what you guys are talking about here on the screen. Yeah. Okie dokie. All right. Again, hello to the people in the chat. Top Dog, Big Armada, Simply Deep, Sir John Legion, the M Studios, Fox, WG Field, Degenerate Sharingan, Dennis King, Sir John Legion. I think I said that name already. Let's get into this thing. Simply Deep says, I'm doing good. How about you? I love some of your wrestling content. Have you ever heard of these old wrestling promotions? FMW, XPW, WEW, Smash Wrestling, and WOW. I did a video on XPW. It was terrible. I hate that show. I hate XPW. I'm not a big fan of FMW either, even though I do like Hayabusa. Big fan of Hayabusa. WEW, I've seen clips of it. I'm not a fan. WOW is very theatrical. I watch it sometimes, but it's a TV show. It's not. It's very much the precursor to Lucha Underground, where these people are not. I know that like Hollywood, Haley J's been on there, Nikita Lyons been on there, and there's like Tessa Blanchard's been on there, but it's not like a real wrestling product. I know that's gonna piss people off, but it's not. Like it's not like a real wrestling product. Sir John Legion says Victoria and Mickey James, Candice Michelle, Lillian Garcia. I'll be straight with any of four of those going in this year. Talk about the Hall of Fame. I think Mickey has to go in. She's been retired for a while. Victoria should go in as well. I think Victoria is the older of the two, so she should definitely go in. I think that would be great. I don't know about Victoria and John Cena going into the Hall of Fame at the same time, but then again, he also banged Mickey James too, so I don't, I don't know. I don't know. What about Candace Owens? She grifted the left and the right. Candace Owens is a chaos agent. And I don't think it's race grifting with Candace. It's just political grifting. She's nuts. That's really what it boils down to. Let's see. You thought I was going to say Dr. Umar? You know what? He's on there. He's on the list for sure. And as a matter of fact, now that you mention it, he probably would be in the top 6. I struggled to figure out who a number 6 would be. But yeah, Umar has hustled niggas for 10 years, 20 years almost. Yeah, man. Dr. Umar. Oh, yes. There's a whole lot. I keep forgetting about the Afrocentric, guys, because I always thought about people from like a more national stage because they do active damage to the national conversation. Like when I talked about Obama, Dr. Umar is worse than Obama. But Dr. Umar has done a lot of damage to the black community. He didn't do nothing to the country, right? Like he didn't have that kind of stroke. He didn't damage the country. he took advantage of some black women and some insecure black men, but that's it. Meanwhile, guys like Jesse Jackson have done active damage to our national racial harmony. Same thing with Al Sharpton. Same thing with Ibram X. Kendi. Same thing with Colin Kaepernick. I don't know if Dr. Umar would has made that kind of impact on like white communities because he doesn't talk to them. He doesn't really engage with them at all. So I don't really look at it from the perspective of Dr. Umar has done a whole lot of damage to our national conversation on race. But he's pretty bad. He's pretty bad though. Sir John Legion says Michael Eric Dyson. Oh, he's a good one. Oh, him and Cornell West, they kind of like a package deal with Tavis Smiley. Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And Michael Eric Dyson, especially for, and I keep saying this and I keep trying to find it. I can never find it. I'm not good at doing deep dives of like old footage, but I'm sure it was on CNN or MSNBC when he was doing an interview with his brother. And they asked, how did he grow up in the same house with his brother? And he became a professor at Georgetown, and his brother ended up going to prison. And this fool said colorism. Bro. But Michael A. Dyson is also just an idiot, right? So he's done some damage on a national level, but less than Al Sharpton, and less than Jesse Jackson, and less than Ibram X. Kendi, and less than Colin Kaepernick. And he was around longer than they were. I don't think people take him seriously anyway, because he talks very fast and he says a whole lot of nothing. Let's see. Do I know that Brett is still crying about Hulk Hogan? Oh, he's never going to let that go. He's never going to let it go. Charlie Kirk started debating Israel's integrity and values, and they wanted him to be a super supporter of Israel, pro-Israel all the way. Okay. But unless it would be more effective for you to shoot somebody who's pro-Hamas, somebody like Hassan Piker or Destiny or somebody like that. I think Destiny is more pro-Israel, but it would be more effective for you to shoot somebody like that than to shoot somebody who is mildly pro-Israel. Like, I think if you'd have sat Charlie Kirk down and says, okay, are you pro-Israel or pro-Hamas? He probably would have said, of the two, Israel, because, Hamas is the terrorist Muslims. Like, no. But in any event, I don't think that's a reason enough to shoot him. There's not enough information for me. Somebody says, yeah, Cash Money has too much. Lil Wayne alone, then you got Drake and Nicki. I don't know if you would count Drake and Nicki when it comes to the Cash Money No Limit thing. I wouldn't even bring them up. They're not. I guess you could, but they're more Young Money than Cash Money, which means they were signed to Lil Wayne. In fact, I think you probably could body No Limit with just Lil Wayne tracks, with just him doing like 6'7" and a milli and stuff like that. But I would prefer to listen to the old stuff. I don't even like a lot of No Limit, but I do like Hootie Hoo and make him say, and of course Mystical, but he's a rapist. Here I go. He's like a 2 or 3 time rapist too. Like, Jesus Christ. You're gonna take an L off that one. You're gonna take an L off of Mystical not being there. But I heard he's getting out soon. I don't like that. Chill on the Papoose criticism. Oh no, he deserves more. You Be Killing Them is one of the fabulous songs that doesn't sound dated. Are you kidding me? You Be Killing Them is one of the most dated songs. Mongo, not 8 Ball and MJG, 36 Mafia was that shit. I like Play It While You Hate. I like them as producers more than I like them as. I don't like Memphis. I'm not even gonna hold you up. Memphis, not my favorite. Memphis is not my favorite when it comes to rap. Um, yeah, they gonna come after me with the Tupac stuff. Uh, was I a Slaughterhouse fan? I'm gonna be honest, I was. I liked the first album. I liked the song Microphone. I liked Sound Off. That was back when I was listening to rap for the lyrics, and I was familiar with Crooked Eye because I listened to his mixtapes. He was like very underrated guy. I was never a Joe Budden guy. I liked some of the Joe Budden felt like a guy they were trying to force you to like. You know, it was like the indie wrestling of rap, where everybody was losing their mind off of the Joe Budden mixtapes, and I was like, that is just mid. You know, him complaining about his dad having kids again. I'm like, I don't care about that. I did like Blood on the Wall though when he did Prodigy. That was pretty good. But I was never really a big Joe Budden listening to this everyman rap shit. But I did like Joel Ortiz, and I love Royce the 5'9". That dude's tremendous. Um, Not just saying it because he's local either, because he's from Oak Park. He's not from Detroit. Moving on. Um, let's see. It says exactly. The government wanted Sam Giancana, Lucky Luciano, and found them. They weren't checking it at all for Asada. Yeah, they didn't. They weren't trying to get her. And I said it to people all the time. Like when the government gets tired of folks, they just put them in the ground. Like when people think that like when COINTELPRO and all this kind of stuff, I'm like, yeah, that was all pretty bad. But did you see what they did to Bonnie and Clyde? you know, like whenever you think like the Negroes had it bad, like they just shot John Dillinger in the street. They just like boom in his head turned the other way and everything. It wasn't a shootout. They just walked up behind him and pow, put him in the ground. Like damn, like what is that? Like that was some real Wild West stuff. They found him and shot him in the street. Just killed him like in an alley or something and left him. And then they put his body on display. That's what they used to do like, to like Billy the Kid and shit. Like Jesse James. They had him assassinated and then he put his body on display. 10 cents of viewing. That's what happens when they really want to get you. And people are walking around for 20, 30 years. They don't really want you, man. You know, it's not that hard. The government can find you if they want you. They didn't want her. They didn't care about her. And they know that she was probably just a pawn in this whole thing anyway. And then she likely didn't pull the trigger. It was probably whatever man she was with that did it. WWE equals sanitized, soulless corporate wrestling. Well, yeah, it's been that way for a while. This has gotten more so since TKO took over. Tiffany was given a lot more character work in NXT. She was the best character on the show, especially when she became champion. All that was stripped away about a month after her Raw debut. And yep. And people were like, oh, they changed her character because like no, they had changed her character from Daddy's Little Rich Girl. They changed that in NXT. That was her character for like the first month, maybe month and a half. And then she got kicked in the face by Saray. She was gone for a little while. And then she came back and they changed her character. And then she was great from that point forward. She was kind of like girl Johnny Nitro. And then they brought her up to the main roster and they pretty much threw her in a blender. They killed it. That's because I don't think they got it. Can anybody ask MongoSlade why he ruined Mega Man? Me? I didn't ruin Mega Man. I didn't have nothing to do with that. I didn't have nothing to do with that. Uh, he said Roman got armbands and the Ulafala to buy with Roman t-shirts. Well, yes, but you can get a knockoff Ulafala from anywhere. To be quite honest, um, I don't know if they'll have. I don't know if they'll be able to do it. They should have made him wear like a special one that they could trademark. That one looked too much like a real one. But yeah, people have bought little followers. I've seen people with them. I know they sold the Roman Reigns tracksuits and stuff. They might have some shoes that they sell with them. But that says your thoughts about Diddy getting 4 years for the men, or the men deserve more years. The thing about Diddy getting 4 years is it's kind of bullshit. If we being honest, he got convicted of the Mann Act. Um, he's been in prison for 2 years already, so it's pretty much he's done half his time already. So you're probably looking at another few months. Not a whole lot, not a whole lot more left. But I think that the judge was upset that he didn't get convicted of like the sex trafficking stuff and the abuse and everything. And he wanted to get him with enough years to to make him suffer. Because in reality, the they should just let him they should have just let him go, if we're being honest. I mean, he got convicted. A lot of people are not gonna want to do business with him anymore. So a lot of his network is gonna shrivel up. There's a lot of people running in the opposite direction when he comes out. But just they just keeping him in jail now for appearances. I don't think they really even expect him to do that much time. He's been in prison like 2 years already anyway, and he's going to do 4 with good time. Another less than another year. You got to do what 80% of your time in the feds. So he's done 50. He probably did about 50% of it already. It's He's almost out anyway. It sucks though, if we're being honest. I don't think he should have been convicted of that stuff. I mean, I get why, because soliciting prostitutes is illegal. Let alone telling them, "Hey, come fly to Florida so we can lube your booty," or whatever he was doing to these people. But these were adults, and that's what they wanted to do. They weren't forced. But maybe that's just I'm different in that way, and they weren't children. So Kevin Abreu, how you doing, brother? Was watching the Chris Van Vliet with Dolph Ziggler. Dolph says he wanted out of WWE in 2019. I watched the clip there. He re-signed, by the way, but I watched the clip there, and he was very upset about the Goldberg thing. And then Vince gave him a little something to do. He didn't want to just go in there and get killed. I mean, I dig that, but I don't know what that was supposed to accomplish. I don't know what that was supposed to accomplish, but he got what he wanted out of the deal. I don't know, man. I think Vince just kind of liked having him around. Got to like having around a good hand. He just kind of liked the guy, but he really should have just let him go though. He said Julia's beautiful madness is the same as Shotzi's frenzy of madness. I don't frenzy of madness. He said it means nothing, just that all the Asian chicks want to use for a phrase anything with madness in it. The thing is, Julia has talent. She just can't talk. Shotzi, she has talent too. It's just that it's in destroying her body. So, but she's having a pretty good run on the Indies. I'm very impressed. I haven't liked any of her matches, but I'm very impressed about with her and how busy she's been. And that's the thing I was going to say. I was going to do a video about this, but I'm very, very impressed in how busy Baron Corbin has been. I'm telling you, bro, like he's everywhere. I'm surprised he hasn't popped up in TNA or anything like that yet. Baron Corbin is a regular on MLW. He regularly pops up in other indies, Maple Leaf Pro. Like he's everywhere. Him and Matt Riddle, they keep jobs. It's like they're starting to work with everybody. Extremely impressive. What's the better AI wrestling feud, Mongo? Tupac versus Biggie or MLK versus Malcolm X? I'll do you one better. I saw somebody do George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. Bro, this AI stuff got to stop. That stuff gotta stop. What about Tariq Nasheed and Dane Calloway? The white people don't even know who Tariq Nasheed is. They only know him for Buck Breaking, which is one of the stupid documentaries he made. But they never even watched it. They just know that he did a documentary called Buck Breaking, and he talks about buck breaking, and he calls other black people coons. A lot of white people don't have no idea who Tariq Nasheed is. He's a top shelf grifter, but no, he is absolutely. But again, just like Dr. Umar, he did not cross over into damaging the national conversation. He is as bad as Umar, and he's been doing it longer because Tariq Nasheed was a rapper. He's in a funk band. He was a pimp. He wanted to be a comedian. He tried everything before he fell into this uh, Negro-centric thing that he's had running for the last 10, 15 years. But he didn't cross over into the national conversation. It's all black people stuff, you know. Like you have, it's bad. As bad as it is, Colin Kaepernick and Obama and Al Sharpton have actively made race relations in the United States worse. They have actively done damage to our national race conversation. I can't put Umar and Tariq Nasheed in the same conversation with them. They're just Negroes who take advantage of other Negroes. It's sad. It says Diddy, when he gets out, can become a full Gotham villain, relocate and pay people to wreak havoc on those who sold him out during his trial. I think he's going to need to save that money because it's going to be very difficult for him to do business. It's going to be almost impossible for him to do business. All the stuff that has been out there, nobody's going to do business with this guy. All right, that's it. He's going to have to live off investments. He's better off as soon as he gets out of prison. He's better off doing a couple of interviews, kind of to get his side of the story out there, to talk about X, Y, and Z. Maybe put out an apology if that's what he feels like doing. That's when it's on his heart, and then disappearing. He's better off just getting in the wind. Pull a Russell Simmons, dog. Just move to Tibet. Just shave your head and become a monk, or a billionaire monk. Just be done with it. But it's gonna be very hard for him to survive, especially in it's not gonna be a thing where he paid his his due to society, so let's let him go. No, I don't think so. I don't think so, champ. It's over for that dude. Yeah, they fucked Bonnie and Clyde up. That was bad. They shot up that house too. What was that? I don't want. It wasn't Ma Barker. Was it Barker? They shot up that house with her and the kids in it or whatever. Like the feds are serious people. Like the FBI is very serious. Like what they did to Fred Hampton was like a taste of what they used to do to people. What they did to other white people. Like the way they hunted down white criminals and just smoked them in the street is like that's crazy. Like that it was nuts. it was nuts. They was getting into open shootouts with those guys. Like it was crazy. And like people don't get it. It's because they don't study the broader criminal world. That's why like the Black Liberation Army and everything was so freaky because they were doing the stuff that the criminals in the 20s was doing. They was robbing banks and robbing Brinks trucks. You're like, what the hell are these people up to? They was living life on the edge. That's why most of them got killed. That's the one thing about Asada Shakur that was interesting. She hang around with a bunch of bank robbers. Like I'm interested in what they were doing. But the Black Liberation Army was fucking psychopaths. They were like the Symbionese Liberation Army. They kidnapped Patty Hearst. They were psychopaths too. I don't really consider them part of like the overall Black Power movement. They were a part of it, but they were just mostly criminals using African titling and African names to expropriate. It was full of shit. You said Tariq was literally on VH1. Yeah, he might have been on there once. I think that Dr. Umar has been on like television. I know he's been like featured on like MSNBC or CNN or whatever, but his target audience is not white people, and they complain about racism just in general. Compare that to Al Sharpton, who claimed that, the Duke lacrosse team gang raped a black girl. And then everybody knew it was a lie, didn't apologize for it. I mean, he just went on and on. He's done this time and time again. Jesse Jackson, again, extorting major corporations. He extorted poor Stax Records almost out of business. It did go out of business eventually, but I mean, unreal. Like there's some Umar and Tariq Nasheed are pretty fucking bad. They're pretty bad, but no. When you compare it to the damage Colin Kaepernick did, I mean, he damaged football, and people still today love football. But think about how much more people would be into football if the Colin Kaepernick thing had not happened. There'd be a lot more people watching football today. There'd be a lot more people excited about football. Like there were some people, okay, I was kind of, it was kind of iffy about the CTE stuff, but that black fist football stuff, that killed it. A lot of people was done with football right there. All right. Ooh, I got about 2 hours in. Great. Thank you everybody for stopping by. I appreciate it. There's going to be a pay-per-view on Saturday morning. I don't know if I'm going to watch it that morning or not. You said he was on the freaking reality TV show. Oh, that's nothing. That's nothing. He was, I mean, again, Tariq Nasheed is, again, not a crossover guy. These people, they get on TV because they're famous, but there's nothing, like, there's no effect of Tariq Nasheed on the national conversation. Like, all of those Hidden Colors documentaries didn't affect anybody, you know? Now he spends most of his time attacking immigrants. So, like I said, I think the buck breaking thing might have been the closest he got to getting into the national conversation, because that was, I guess, about white men raping male slaves, which is, I'm pretty sure it happened, but I wouldn't do an entire research project on it. I don't want to know that bad about what was happening during that time. But then again, there's a lot of really bad stuff happening at that time. Oh yeah, you can definitely add it to his grifting career. I mean, he tried to run a funk band. I think he might still have a music video up. He might have a music video back from when he was a rapper. I forget what was his rap name. I forget. I think his album was called "Wash Your Ass" or something like that. This dude is a moron, man. Like legit, he's a moron. I can't stand it. It's ridiculous. It's truly ridiculous. But he's pretty bad. Like if you was talking about like parasites on the black community, him and Dr. Umar would be number one too. Like without gullible Negroes, they wouldn't have an audience at all. Like there's nothing. They add nothing to anything. Like they really don't add anything to the conversation. Umar is at least, I was about to say the word smart, but he's entertaining. Like I can watch Dr. Umar. He's funny. Tariq Nasheed, I don't even think he's funny. Oh, K Flex, yeah, that's it right there. K Flex, wash your ass, motherfucker. Oh my god. I remember when Hidden Colors first came out, the first one. Uh, Everybody was like, "Why is K Flex doing a documentary on Black History?" And he hit gold with that shit. Oh my god! Now it's been like 6 of those Hidden Colors movies. I've only seen like the first one. One day I'm gonna get a laptop and we're gonna sit here and watch documentaries. We're gonna watch Hidden Colors. I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere, but um, yeah, I haven't seen it in years though, like years and years. And I like watching documentaries. I've watched Uncle Tom a bunch of times, but I haven't watched Hidden Colors in years, a whole lot of years actually. All right, wash your ass, K Flex. He used to write pimp manuals. I don't. He used to write pimp manuals. What a what a talented man that Tariq Nasheed. That's also a fake name, by the way. That is not his real name. So that should tell you right there that he's a race hustler. Whenever somebody becomes famous without using their real name, I get suspicious. Dr. Umar Ifantunde is not his real name. I find it hard to like so many of those dudes who take all these African ass names, and you find out they're a grifter. Like, are you really surprised? How many people took up a fake name or a fake identity and managed to keep it real? Not many. Not many. I'm sure there were some, and maybe I'll put some thought into it. I could figure out one. Not besides Malcolm X, and he just changed his name to X, and then he became a Muslim right before he died. He changed his name to some Muslim shit. El Haj Malik El Shabazz. But most of those dudes, when they change their name, it just goes to show that they were full of shit the entire time, and they're running from something. They're having identity problems. It's like psychology, you see. Said you need to talk about punk ass amazing Lucas. That dude's an annoying ass grifter. I saw him on. I saw a clip of him talking to what's that white man? Pierce Morgan. He was on Pierce Morgan's show, and it was weird because Amazing Lucas used to be a conservative commentator, and then he fell down a rabbit hole and came out 100% completely woke. And I didn't know where that came from. Like I never really watched a lot of his stuff anyway. So I never thought he was particularly smart or particularly witty or particularly funny. Um, and then he went from being a conservative to being a super woke leftist. Like, damn, that happened quick. And that didn't happen that often. Usually it's the other way around. And I was like, that's interesting. And I never really had the intention of listening to anything he done. I think I watched maybe some clips back in the day. I do remember him being a conservative because I think he did stuff with TPUSA. Because I remember him, Candace, and Brandon Tatum. They all became famous around the same time, and I think they used to do stuff together. And then as everybody started to branch off, he just went into the crazy woke leftist lane. I don't know how he got over there, but I'm glad he's happy. He looks miserable. He also don't look that different. He said Lucas got to be paid and bought off. Dude went from 0 to 100 post George Floyd. No brakes, all gas. Yeah, it happened so quick. I didn't even like. I didn't even have a chance to track like him starting to slip. It just kind of went from he's doing conservative stuff, and then zoop, he's full Black Lives Matter, post-traumatic slave syndrome. I'm like, what the fuck? You, there's no way you believe that. How come the Ukrainians don't have post-traumatic slave syndrome? How come there's no Asians with it? How come there's no Koreans with it? How come no Irish people have it? No Welsh, no Scottish, no Canadians. Nobody has it but Negroes in America. How is that possible? I don't know. You would think that if there's post-traumatic slave syndrome, what about the people who are currently enslaved? Do they have it too? There's still plenty of slaves in Africa and in parts of the Arab world. They just make up shit, you know. I would. Somebody dared me to read that book. I just feel like it's so stupid that I would probably lose sleep if I tried to read it. I'm gonna try to. I might try to read it though. It might be one of the. It might like when I force myself to read the ISIS papers, and I force myself to read They Came Before Columbus. I like sometimes that stuff is entertaining. The ISIS papers ended up being entertaining. They Came Before Columbus just was nonsense. But I may have to I couldn't force myself to read Ibram X. Kendi. I couldn't do it. His ideas are just not smart. But maybe Dr. Joy DeGruy, I'll force myself to read some of that. I'm not going to like buy the book. Maybe I'll find like a bootleg of it and I'll read that. All right. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate you, gentlemen. I'll see you guys this weekend. Enjoy the show. Peace out.